Hey guys, welcome to Boxing Squared for boxing news and views from around the internet. Why would Deontay Wilder turn down $100 million to fight on Dazn? A multi-fight deal that has been offered, rumoured to exceed $100 million. Why would he turn it down? This is the question that I'm going to cover in this video, and unlike probably some others that you may have seen people raging and going off their nut about it, I'm going to hold judgment on the situation until we actually know what is going on, because like many things, the devil can often be in the detail. So what we do know is that Chris Mannix from Sports Illustrated, he put out a tweet saying Deontay Wilder will formally announce his network decision on Tuesday. We already knew that, but expectation is that he will reject Dazn USA's offer, sources tell at SI Now, so Sports Illustrated Now. Dazn has aggressively pursued Wilder in the last week, offering him a multi-fight deal that would well exceed $100 million. And if we're to take that as this is what's going to happen, it's foreshadowing that he's going to turn down the multi-fight $100 million deal. Why would he do that? What is actually going on that could make him say, actually, thanks, but no thanks. I'm going to do my own thing, or I'm going to do something else. Because there could be actually a number of variables here. So number one, he may have had a better or similar offer, but is that feasible? So the likely players, Top Rank, I don't think we can discount that, Showtime and Fox. They would seemingly be the only players right now in the market for Deontay Wilder's services for a deal, anything rivaling what Dazn can offer Wilder at the minute. And the Top Rank thing, even though he had said just recently after Tyson Fury bolted for ESPN in a co-promotional deal with Top Rank that he would rather face Anthony Joshua next, well, money talks. And maybe if he can get a deal that rivals something that Dazn has offered, and that's not, that's not completely inconceivable given Tyson Fury's deal is meant to be something around, the $100 million mark if he has, that's about a 5-fight deal, something like that. And if he meets all the milestones and all that sort of stuff, and one of them would be fighting Deontay Wilder in a rematch. So that offer of sorts has been on the table for Deontay Wilder. With the interest from Dazn, maybe ESPN and Top Rank has come back and said, actually, we can up our original offer, whatever it was going to be, and I think it was meant to be, was it $12.5 or $15 million to fight Dominic Breazeale and then fight Tyson Fury at the back end of 2019, or it might have even been a second fight before fighting Tyson Fury. But anyway, it was going to be a decent amount of money. We didn't really know all the terms of that. We can't discount that they've come in with a bigger offer. ESPN is now spending up in the heavyweight division, evidenced by getting Kubrat Pulev on board. They've been in talks with Dillian Whyte for some sort of arrangement that may or may not get finalised and announced. We'll have to see what happens. And obviously, Tyson Fury. So why wouldn't they offer, Deontay Wilder some crazy money to get him on board there? Because if they feel that another platform is going to outbid them, outspend them, and potentially steal some of their thunder, take a potential belt away from them, why wouldn't they, up their offer? Especially if they've already been, dipping into their pocket and writing some big checks, and cementing some big deals with some of the main players in the heavyweight division. We can't discount it. The other options are Fox and Showtime. Well, we'll start with Showtime first, because this feels to me less likely that they would be able to, come up with $100 million or something similar. I'm just not sure that they could. They may be able to, for the Breazeale fight, have a certain guarantee, but the reality is, beyond that, if there is no Tyson Fury or Anthony Joshua, or the likelihood of getting those fights, who is Showtime going to be paying Deontay Wilder $20 or $30 million a fight to be fighting the likes of, say, Oscar Rivas or Adam Kovnatsky or a Luis Ortiz rematch? It's unlikely. The reality is Deontay Wilder's been campaigning on Showtime and getting paid relative peanuts to some of the offers and, the figures that have been thrown out now. So, he hasn't been exactly, building a real star-studded career at Showtime on that platform until recently. But some of that did coincide with an improvement in opponent, Luis Ortiz and Tyson Fury being, the evidence of that. Before that, it was a number of guys, middling sort of meat, as I call it, that no one really wanted to see Deontay Wilder in with. And that was some careful management from, his advisors and who he was getting put in with. Although, some people try to say that Deontay Wilder was avoided by many, but those were voluntary, so he chose to fight them. But Showtime, could they match, $100 million for 3 fights, 4 fights, whatever it would be? Feels unlikely. For the Brazil deal, they might be able to offer similar to what is the reported about $20 million from Dazn to fight Brazil on Dazn. They may be able to come to something close to that. But whereas with Fox, that could actually be more likely. Fox is a much bigger platform than Showtime. They have been investing in boxing, evidenced by their, recent deal with PBC, which was expanded for even more content. So they have a budget, for boxing, and maybe like DAZN, if they're really trying to get a foothold in the market, maybe they're willing to sort of spend on Deontay Wilder to get him on Fox, to get him in some big fights in front of some big audiences and try to, clip the ticket and pay-per-view or who knows what. So Fox could be a dark horse here. They may be able to come close, potentially, to matching what has been offered. But it is still a big if. Can they do that? I don't know. Hard to say. The second thing to consider with this, and we're going to find out all these details in due course, but consider this. Maybe, the headline of turning down a 3-fight deal, $100 million or whatever on DAZN, maybe it's only in part turning down the deal. It could just be for the next fight. Maybe the Brazil portion will be on an existing PBC network, and the next fights with, say, Anthony Joshua, that could be a different story, negotiated, with the mediator of John Skipper, for example. He's met with Al Heyman, Shelley Finkel, Lou DiBella, Deontay Wilder. So maybe only the Dominic Brazil part of this 3-fight $100 million deal is being taken out of the mix. But he could still be potentially in line to fight on DAZN. But who knows? We'll have to see here. And another thing to consider here is maybe contractual issues could be a stumbling block here. Even though Deontay Wilder has loudly said, I'm a promotional free agent, I'm a network free agent, when the ESPN deal came up for the first time, was bubbling up, there were a number of reports that sort of said that Showtime would have the right of refusal on that fight, that they would be able to sort of come in and sort of match an offer. That was out there at the time. So perhaps the Brazil leg of a fight, of a deal, perhaps that's just not workable because potentially Showtime could match it. And if it was a reasonable figure, and I guess, reasonable is, how you define it, but say if it was $12, $15, $20 million, maybe they could come over the top and go, actually, we're going to take that fight, we're going to pick it up, we're going to match that deal. Maybe it's one of these things where they have some of these rights, and just organizing a 3-fight deal with DAZN at this point, because of some potential residual issues from Showtime, maybe it's just not possible to string something together. You have to consider that. Another issue to consider is loyalty and pride. Deontay Wilder has been with Al Heyman for the best part of 5 or 6 years now. It's a common misconception that Al Heyman has been with Deontay Wilder for his entire career. He hasn't. For the first, was it 5 years, 6 years of his career, Deontay Wilder was guided and under the promotional control of Golden Boy. They were the ones that took him for about his first 30 fights. He signed on with Al Heyman, it was maybe, I think, the end of 2013, something like that. And from there, he ended up getting his title shot, and obviously he's been in the PBC Al Heyman stable ever since. And with all of this, potentially loyalty and pride, that will play a part, that he will feel loyal to Al Heyman and what's happened and the way he's been treated and looked after in his career, even though many would argue that he's been grossly underpromoted, he's been poorly matched with guys that he shouldn't have been in with, because if he had have been in with bigger names potentially earlier in his championship career, because remember, he had about half a dozen fights against guys no one wanted to see. So with all that in mind, some would say that he's actually not been well looked after in some regards. But the matchmaking has been extremely careful up until 2018. The Ortiz and the Fury fight, perhaps you could actually argue because Ortiz was older and Fury was coming back from 2.5 years off the couch, you could also argue that was also careful matchmaking. But Deontay Wilder, he hasn't sort of exploded into the potential, champion that he would want to be in the eyes of fans, and he isn't as well known as potentially he should be, hasn't made nearly as much money as he potentially could have had he been handled a different way. And some of the promotion, in my view, has actually been rather lackluster. He has been grossly under-promoted for much of his career, but also some of the things that he says and some of the conflicting statements, it doesn't often help him either. And you have to consider, well, what's he going to say if he turns this down and he says, look, I'm going to stay put, my advisor Al Heyman, manager Shelley Finkel, we're going to make our own money, we're going to make money regardless. And he has actually said that before. In a recent interview, he said, we're going to make money regardless. This was after the Tyson Fury stuff. How much money do you need? You can't take it with you when you die. But then in another Boxing Voice interview just a week or two later, when the Dazn stuff broke, he actually said, it's time for me to get my due and what I deserve. I'm the key to the heavyweight division. And he said, at the time of that interview, in the previous 24 to 48 hours, they'd been getting a lot of offers. So what that meant, who knows? So Dazn, Showtime, Fox, maybe even Top Rank. Don't discount Top Rank coming back round with another offer. And maybe he would potentially prefer to take a similar deal with Top Rank if it was a similar monetary amount and if there was going to be a rematch with Tyson Fury, because there's no love lost between Deontay Wilder and Eddie Hearn and Anthony Joshua. And the whole loyalty and pride thing, with the pride element, it wouldn't surprise me if he wanted to turn his back on Anthony Joshua and spite him and try to deny him a piece of legacy with the undisputed fight. Because I think he could actually, he does have that in him to do it. And he said, if you don't give me what I want, we're never going to get the fight made. And he's called for 50-50. And I guess we have no idea with this whole Dazn deal. What does the actual amount that he's getting, what does that actually represent in a cut? Because if Anthony Joshua is already getting $30 million, $32 million US dollars to fight Jarrell Miller, for example, you'd have to imagine he's probably going to get more than $40 million for a fight with Deontay Wilder. And Wilder's reported cut of a Joshua fight or a 2-fight deal would be approximately $40 million per fight. Who knows if it's, lower or higher, but that's roughly the numbers that have been sort of thrown out there. But he won't be able to blame Eddie Hearn if he does sort of turn his back on this Dazn deal, because John Skipper, a mediator, someone who hasn't been inflaming, negotiations or anything, has managed to get them around the table, offer a deal and sort of say, look, this is what we can give you, this is what we're prepared to offer, and reports say that it's roughly $100 million. So it will be hard for Deontay Wilder to turn around and go, oh, this is all Eddie Hearn's fault, because that has been a bit of a fallback strategy with some of this. But perhaps, there's other factors involved here, and who knows what will happen with, other broadcasters and what they've offered him. But if they don't make the numbers public, if we don't really hear what it is, we'll never be able to actually compare it. So the devil will be in the detail with this. But also another thing to consider is maybe he's getting bad advice. Maybe he's being sold a dream that there's greener pastures where he is with the Fox deal or Showtime, and he is one of the bigger names in the PBC stable, and farming him out to a streaming service that is looking for growth, that's kind of, counterproductive, potentially bad for business. And Al Heyman, his advisor, the guy who's advising him, potentially won't want his competition getting a leg up. Although, you look at this and you could go, well, could they look at this and go, it's a 3-fight deal. We've been building this guy up for 10 years, or, several years now, I should say. And maybe it's time to really try to cash out on this guy. How much does he really have left to give? He's 33 now. It's hard to sort of see, can he perform at an elite level for another 3 or 4 years? The guy's hand, it's an issue. He's been breaking bones and having injuries all over the place. Can he hold out? Is it time to clip the ticket and cash him out? Because everyone gets paid then, and that's kind of the payoff for some of the work that they have been doing. But the counterpoint to that is, well, if he does do that and he's successful and, has some big, notable, memorable fights elsewhere, doesn't necessarily help Al Heyman's PBC stable. And he's got a vested interest there to look after his own interests, which necessarily won't gel all the time with Deontay Wilder's earning potential elsewhere. So we'll have to see what happens, but there's lots to chew over. I'm looking forward to seeing what the detail is of this, whatever it is, and then we'll take it from there. Drop a comment, loud and often. Hit like, hit subscribe, follow me on Twitter, boxing_squared. I'm out.